Welcome to Kaiser Watch with John Kaiser. I'm your host, Jim Goddard. John, what's coming up on the show today?
Well, Jim, we're going to talk about why people should consider subscribing to the KRO Individual Membership at $450 between now and March 31st of 2025, because this will be the last opportunity to join this club. After that, it will be a $200 a month pro membership that will only be available to the public.
Why did the market shrug at this week's Golden Crest results from Solitario?
On December 9th, Solitario put out assays for hole number 8, and the headline was 41 meters of 1 gram per ton, but it started at 322.5 meters, and it bottomed at 363.5 meters. The press release indicated that the hole had to be stopped because they were having caving problems at the bottom. So they had not finished this hole as deep as they wanted it to go. Now, in the very first paragraph, Chris Harold says he's pleased to announce the most compelling drilling results to date on its Golden Crest project. Now, that's pretty strong words. And when I talked to him, he was beside himself with happiness, as they've completed 11 holes total. 3 are still pending. The first 3 were published on September 16th, and they were drilled in the downpour area where they have pretty good surface values, and they did get some decent numbers, but you couldn't really tell what the geometry was or how it hung together. And this program is basically a scout drilling program. Now, my subscribers within the KRO Individual Membership Slack forum, their immediate reaction was, it starts at 323 meters. That's pretty much the limit of open pit. The grade is 1 gram per ton. This is a dud hole. Pretty disappointing. But it's really all about the story, the context. And this is something that I specialize in. It's providing the subscribers with the context and explaining when results come, what do these mean? What is the backstory? What is the story going forward? So this intersection is in fact a discovery hole. And since I do not own a large position in Solitario Resources Corp., I am actually quite happy the market has not responded, because I'm going to be cleaning out some of my duds before the end of the year for tax losses, and Solitario is going to be the stock that I really want to build my position on, because next year they will be confirmed as, or Golden Crest at least, will be confirmed as a major discovery. Now, the concern for this season was that this program, which is in the initial plan of operations that got approved late last year, this is a scout drilling program. So in most of the cases, they have sort of weak values at surface. They drilled the one with the best value at surface first, and the market wasn't overly excited about what they saw. And they do have the Ponderosa application, which they hope will get approved in time for next year's summer drilling season. And there they have a spectacular array of surface values, high-grade gold values. And when they start drilling in there, they will definitely find something significant. But given the hideousness of the U.S. Forest Service permitting cycle, where the objective seems to be to delay, as if there's some sort of insurance company that never wants to pay out, there's a risk that they won't have the permit for next year. So the market's been looking at Solitario and saying, okay, unless you come up with something spectacular within the initial plan of operations where you can continue to drill next year, you may be a dud stock next year. Now, the important part of this hole that the market obviously does not understand is that it is in the lower Deadwood Formation. Now, the lower Deadwood Formation is a type of calcareous dolomitic sandstone, and it's clearly been pumped with a lot of fluids. That's how they ended up with all these drilling problems. And it is the host rock farther north for the Wharf District, where 10 million ounces have historically been mined. And right now, Coeur is low-grade mining it, mining low-grade and heap leaching the oxide ore. The lower Deadwood Formation is exposed at surface, so it is open pitable. But what people do not really understand that 100 years ago, there were structures that cut through this stratigraphy, and this was really high grade. Apparently, 3 million ounces at 1 ounce per ton were hauled out of the Wharf system way before the heap leaching open pit mining started in the 80s, and this is what this hole at what they used to call the Land's End target has intersected. Now, the important thing is, and you could really only get this by, say, talking to management. I talked to Chris Harold for further clarity. The news release was a relatively sparse news release, and he said that the gold mineralization starts abruptly where the middle Deadwood Formation transitions to the lower Deadwood Formation. And this is important because the middle Deadwood Formation is a type of shale that is quite impervious. It's a very similar geological context as what we have in the Carlin district of Nevada, where you have these structures that allow these gold-enriched fluids to migrate up the structures, and where the structure hits the shale siltstone caps, it has a harder time going through. But when beneath it there are all these busted up limestone, calcareous limestone type horizons, these are very porous, so then the fluids pond underneath and start to spread out. But of course, within the structure itself, the grade piles up. And something similar took place in the Wharf District. And the reason they drilled this Land's End target, if you look at the map that they published during as part of their Denver Gold Show presentation, there is a 12-kilometer red stripe in the western part of the Golden Crest property, and the press release says it's about 500 meters wide, and this is a structural feature inferred from the geophysics that they have done over the property. And the surface mineralization that they picked up, it was not particularly great for gold, but they said, we need to test this structure to see what the stratigraphy looks like and see if it's mineralized. So the fact that, boom, they go from middle Deadwood Formation into the lower Deadwood, and they start getting this lower grade stuff, 1 gram per ton, but they get multiple spikes up to almost 4 grams per ton, especially at the bottom of the holes where they finally have to give up because the drilling becomes too difficult. So they have randomly intersected this prospective formation, and it is mineralized. And obviously they haven't hit the structures yet. They're going to have to figure that out later. But to get this amount of gold, this is like getting the halo that Coeur is mining at the Wharf District, where 10 million total ounces have been identified and mined out. But the game here is to find where these high-grade structures are of 1 ounce per ton that can be underground mined. And with this particular platform that's permitted, they can drill 3 more holes from it, and the very first thing that they will do when they can get back onto the property is drill those 3 extra holes so that they can get a sense of the surrounding geology and how the mineralization behaves. Now, again, they would need to build more platforms, but the stupid way that the U.S. Forest Service runs things, they want you to pick, and the BLM does the same thing, they want you to pick your drill pads in advance and do all kinds of nonsense studying everything around it. And if the drill holes that you pull show, we need to move in this direction, then you need to apply for modifications again. And this is hopefully something that Trump steps in and says, enough of this nonsense. We're going to streamline this. They're still going to have to clean up everything, reclaim everything, but we're going to allow them to figure out where the drill should go next and not have to wait a half year to 12 months to get permission to continue the exploration. So to me, this press release is significant. It actually indicates a discovery because these are lateral horizons, and to randomly hit this type of mineralization in the target horizon, that is fantastic news. And again, we discussed it in our Slack forum, and that's our members have been out there accumulating this, even as the stock sinks lower. And to understand these stories, these subtleties, that's a reason people subscribe for the individual KRO membership.
Why do you see VR Resources as a perfect example of why investors should join the $450 KRO Individual Member Club before it's closed on April 1st, 2025?
Now, VR Resources is part of my bottom fish collection, and I talk about the bottom fish in the Kaiser Watch episodes only when I really feel like it, when I want to illustrate some sort of concept. So the KRO 450 membership, it's really kind of a workshop. We have 50 plus bottom fish tagged. These are all the serious, real companies out there who know what they're doing. They're not just these jokers who rent the property from some prospect generator and pretend to know what they're talking about. No, these are companies that generate projects, do proper data gathering, articulate the story so that the audience can understand what's going on, and hopefully deliver a discovery. Now, VR Resources has been on my bottom fish collection for many, many years now, and they have tackled various projects, several in Nevada, the Bonita copper play in northwestern Nevada, the New Boston in sort of central western Nevada, and then also the Ansel gold play that they still have. But they've also been in Ontario, where they've been in the James Bay lowlands. They've been chasing IOCG targets associated with the Kappas casing structural zone, and in the process they accidentally discovered on the Northway property a kimberlite. So that was very interesting because this area had been drilled for kimberlite targets before, and they'd only found these alnoites, which aren't quite kimberlite, so have no diamond potential, but this looked like kimberlite, and they drilled a bunch of holes into it, but the microdiamonds weren't really there, and it turned out that the kind of kimberlite it was a group 2 orangeite kimberlite, which can be commercially diamondiferous, but generally is not. So they continue to own this and a whole cluster of similar mag targets around there, but diamonds are dead for the moment, and they can't justify spending any money there. And they also had the Hecla-Kilmer project, which turned out to have meaningful grades of rare earths with a decent heavy rare earth component to the mix. But they ended up deciding to sell this to another junior, which is now trying to advance this project. And that could turn out to be very timely because China is ramping up its retaliation to America's withholding of high-end chip technology, and also with all these tariffs against Chinese exports or imports from the United States perspective, China's in a position to start retaliating by cutting back other materials supplies, such as rare earths, which are a much bigger deal than gallium, germanium, graphite, and antimony. Well, in any case, Mike Gunning and Justin Daly, they ended up making a relationship with Byron Kolbeck, who is a prospector who specializes in sort of northwestern Ontario, where he also does a lot of road building for the logging companies. And in the process, as they build roads, much of this area is just covered with bush and overburden, and prospecting is difficult. So he's kind of a prospector on the side, keeps his eyes open when there's fresh rock exposed, and has developed a skill set of starting to find good projects in this area. And when Justin and Mike sort of met him earlier this year. They developed a relationship, and eventually in September, they optioned several projects from him and gave him a royalty over a large area of interest that they call the Empire District. It's sort of west of the Lac des Îles mine, which is a palladium platinum mine, about 100 kilometers west of that, and it's east of the Hammond Reef gold deposit in an area that isn't really believed to have any potential for these, platinum group metal enriched deposits. There's although it's the Wabigoon terrain, this part to the west is believed to be not fertile for the same kind of PGM deposits, such as the Lac des Îles, which is about 73 million tons of 2 gram per ton palladium with a platinum grade, a tenth of that, and then low copper and nickel grades. And it has been both open pit mined and underground mined. But this whole area has a lot of mag targets in there, and it's been assumed there's some sort of ultramafic intrusion. But because the academics said that, well, this is not the right area to find anything economic, and because when you visit them, it's all covered with bush and overburden. You would have to prospect with a drill bit, which is very expensive and kind of hard to justify when the general feeling is that this isn't the right rock setting for serious metal deposits to have formed. Now, Byron didn't really know all this stuff, and he's of a different breed of prospector. He's done quite well scouting out pegmatites and farming them out for the lithium hunters in the past few years. And in this case, with 2 projects that he staked, in both cases he did these digim geophysical surveys. They're not really the modern kind that are done. But in the case of the Empire project, it revealed a conductor. And of course, when you do a digim, you also get the magnetic anomaly. So clearly, what was seen in the government data suddenly had much better resolution. And at the western edge, right by where the road goes by, he actually managed to find outcrop, ultramafic outcrop, and it ran, below commercial grades, assays of platinum, palladium, nickel, and copper. Nothing to write home about, but it's peripheral to all the geophysics that they did. And he spent the money on that. And he farmed it out to VR Resources, which can acquire 100%. And what they did is they looked at this data and said, okay, let's do one of these DCIP surveys over it, the IP surveys, and this gives you chargeability resistivity data, which is supposed to be indicative of sulfide presence. And sure enough, these results, the 3 lines that they did, overlapped with what the digim survey was telling them and the magnetic survey, and they said, okay, there is something going on here. So on December 3rd, they started drilling, and on Tuesday, they put out a press release. There wasn't a huge amount in it, but they said that the second hole, starting at 45 meters, had intersected 450 meters of ultramafic to mafic rock, black stuff, which has disseminated sulfides throughout, sometimes more, sometimes less, and looks kind of similar to what is in that highway showing, that outcrops that's too low grade, but definitely indicates that these 4 metals, typical for these magmatic segregation type systems to host. And the stock had been languishing at 3 cents after the market's disappointment from the new Boston drilling earlier this year. And as a shock to everybody, it traded as high as 7 cents and closed at 6.5 cents on 6 million shares on that day, which is really unusual. You might expect it to go up, and then the algo short sellers start selling into it, and then they lean into the bid, and they usually close it back at where it started at. And in the subsequent days, the volume dropped to 3 million, and then to 1 million shares. And today they put out a another press release showing that hole number 4, which is an 800-meter step out to the northeast on the second IP line that they did, which shows similar geophysical data, and they announced that they had collared it in the same type of mafic rock with disseminated sulfides in it. Now, the press release, both of them were interesting in that there was no mention of chalcopyrite or pentlandite, which are the copper and nickel sulfide metals. And I asked Mike about that, and he said, well, it's quite fine-grained sulfides, and there's like it's pyrite and pyrrhotite, and you just cannot see in this type of fine-grained stuff whether there is any chalcopyrite. You're going to have to assay it. So what they have done, at least with the first hole, they have selected 4 samples of some of the better-looking sulfide in this rock, but it's not like massive sulfide where you could potentially get a high-grade spike. And they sent this on a rush basis because they want to know, is this thing fertile? And now with this 800-meter step out, even though we have no idea what this is going to grade, we now see that there is a substantial tonnage footprint present here. Now, this is not one of these layered intrusive complexes, although they originally talked about that. This is more like the lac des Îles system, which is a chaotic, multi-phased pulsing of magmas and magma chambers, and going through hydrothermal pulses over and over again, and creating quite a combination of high and low grade mineralization. And the reason they went and rushed these assays is because if there is a meaningful grade of platinum, palladium elements, and some copper and nickel, this kills that old bias against this region that it's fertile for this type of system. And there are a lot of these mag anomalies, which when Byron visited them, they couldn't see anything, so there wasn't much he could do about them. But apparently they want to be in a position to go out there and stake these, because even if this westward target within the Empire property turns out to not be good enough, if the evidence shows that this region is fertile, then you go out there and pick off the other ones, and one of them may prove to be a lac des Îles clone. So figuring all that out, that's not in the press release. Hints of it are in the corporate presentation, and that's what I specialize in. I look at these geological contexts. I talk to management. We set things up in our bottom fish forum as to, well, here's what they're hoping to find, what we're going to be looking for. And because there's all these restrictions on what they can say in a press release, these geological word salads, they just glaze eyes over. But if you're properly prepared and can understand what the story is supposed to be, and what the latest results are saying about how it is evolving, you can either have your position before, or be like me, buy the position after news come out, because we are still in an awful bear market of capitulation selling, and while stocks like VR may double and then sag back again 50%, we're doing it at such low valuation levels that you can come in afterwards with the benefit of the extra information that has been furnished by the company. Now, they call this the Empire District, and they're looking at it from a big picture perspective. And the other project, Silverback, which they think is their flagship project, it's now getting competition from the Empire property to be potentially the flagship. And the Silverback is an interesting story because Byron actually spent money drilling a hole into the Digium anomaly that he had generated, and this was a ultramafic dike of the kind that the area is known for, and its mineralization is of course too low to be of interest. But along the way, they intersected porphyritic mineralization that was anomalous for gold and a bit of copper. And this would have been a later stage intrusion that came in there. and possibly harvested metals from these existing dikes that came in much earlier. And the VR Resources has done a 3D DCIP survey over this. The numbers are still being crunched, and what they're hoping to find is evidence of a significant sulfide system to the east of this dike, suggesting that this porphyry is large, and what they hit may just be a peripheral part of it, but the whole thing could be significant. And if these things exist, and you go back several hundred kilometers to the east, Hemlo was this type of porphyritic system with 20 million ounces of high grade, where some gold snippets had been known before. And it wasn't until they were persistent and drilled into where the guts of this were that they found this extraordinary Hemlo deposit back in that 1980 to 82 period. Nothing else was ever found in the surrounding area similar, but it's possible that this area here in the western part of the Wabigoon terrain is prospective for these types of systems. And because of the bias about how it wasn't prospective has discouraged anybody from trying to, poke through all the overburden and bush that covers everything, this is like a virgin play that VR Resources has opened up. And they're waiting for those results. Don't know if it could be that there's just nothing there, that what they did intersect there was just some local pulse of whatever, or it could be something significant. But VR Resources now has the Silverback and the Empire projects all within this Empire district, and they're literally potentially inventing a whole new regional play. So we have to wait for the assays on the Empire Westwood target to see if they're high enough to qualify as a discovery. And then we have to see if the geophysics they've done do illuminate the Silverback target and say, wow, this is something new, different, and potentially very significant. And this is the type of stuff I write about, talk about through our trackers and through our Slack forum, where members ask questions, and that's what you get for $450 US per year, and that will end after March 31st, 2025. Then we switch to a pro model, which is really aimed more at high-end investors and corporations who are doing peer research and that, and don't really care what I'm talking about. So we're kind of turning the KRO individual membership into a club that will be exclusive after March 31st and available only on an invitation-only basis beyond that.
John, thanks for the update.
You're welcome, Jim.
I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on Kaiser Watch are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as a recommendation to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at kaiserresearch.com.